Welcome back to another episode of the Return of the Roar podcast, presented by Sactown Sports 1140. My name is Brenden Nunes. My guy Frankie Cartoscelli here, as usual. How you feeling, Frank?
Brenden, everyone listening, hello. It's good to be back. We took a little break, just kind of going through the course of the season. You know, if you listen to Brenden and I, you know that we're on the air most days. We go on with our buddies Chris and Alan. But I was telling you before we started recording, I'm wearing the bags under my eyes right now, just kind of at that point where it's late nights and early mornings, and doing good. By the way, in my sister's room, for those watching on YouTube, my sister, still a roommate of mine, will be moving out soon, but I'm in her room right now. As you can see, she's got some Tyler the Creator art behind me, which is real nice. Her closet. Switching it up.
We know
a little
it's your
bit.
room, Frank. It's okay.
This is my room. You got me with the pink curtains stuff. You know, it's nice touch. Nice touch. I see. I was going to ask where the Jemias Ramsey cutout was, because usually that's always welcoming me in your camera, but it's at our office.
It is at the office. That might need to make a return. Actually, it's better in an office than in my bedroom. You know what I mean?
In your room?
Yeah. Dude, the first time I got that, it scared the crap out of me in the middle of the night one time, actually. It got me super off guard. It was the first time it was there. It was just like in the corner of my room. I halfway woke up in the middle of the night and saw like a silhouette, like an outline of a person. And just because I was half asleep, it woke me up for half a sec,
Isn't he like cooking in the G League right now? Isn't he having a good year? Or
yeah, I saw him when they came into town playing for OKC. He's playing pretty well, and now he's on the USA team actually with Stanley Johnson and Deontay Burton, the AmeriCup qualifier team. The other day he went off 14 points in a row to start the game or something.
Yeah, I saw some footage of him not too long ago, but he looked like he's yoked now. Like he put on some size, which I guess is kind of like the move of a lot of guys who are trying to kind of make it, just add size. And like Nick Stauskas a couple years ago was looking beefed up in the G League, and I don't know what happened to him, Sauce Castillo, but he was beefing up for a while too.
Jemiah's still 22. I'm just saying.
What about Bob Woodard?
Never know. Woodard, it's probably only one more year. Honestly, he's the one that I don't really know what has been going on recently.
Let's do a quick.
I got to do better
before we dive into where the Kings are right now. Rob Woodard.
this.
I have to know. Do you have it?
Yeah, I'm trying to see where we'd look this up. I guess I'm going to try Real GM here.
Because for those who don't know, he's overseas.
He played for Indiana in Summer League.
He had to have had the most NBA ready build of any player in that draft too. It just didn't work out, unfortunately. But
oh yeah, no,
because then didn't we talk about this? When is the last time the Kings had a second round pick that worked out?
Yeah, I mean, does Nemi count? Nemi doesn't count, huh?
No, and then Keon's undrafted. So I mean, I guess that counts. I guess you maybe that's better. I guess an undrafted free agent that's better than a second. I mean, probably should have just taken him.
Kobe Jones. Kobe Jones is next up.
He's gonna work. He's gonna work out. But
Woodard is somewhere overseas. Earlier, he's played for 3 different teams. He actually was in the Greek League earlier this year too. He is living it up overseas. That's the latest.
Man.
Latest with the Sacramento team, though.
I was like, if Bob Woodard was playing for the Heat last night, he might have had himself a game.
I mean, he's just Haywood Highsmith out there. So the Kings did just lose to the Miami Heat last night, who were without 12 players or however many. And in very typical fashion, they won the night before in LA against the Clippers, a Clippers team that's really rolling right now, even if they did not have Paul George. And so now post All-Star break, we're looking at a win against the Spurs and then a back-to-back against the Clippers and Heat, where you beat the Clippers and lost to the Heat. Frank, is this not the most stereotypical, predictable thing, considering how the Kings season has gone this year?
I think that it's very unfortunate that we're at that point. We're not at that point. I guess where the Kings are at that point where you do have a win like that. You come off one of your best wins of the year. Mike Brown called it their most complete win of the year. He said that game against Denver a couple weeks ago before the break might have been their best win of the year, that they came back and they held a good team, to 98 points, and De'Aaron Fox had a big fourth quarter that night. A big win over the Clippers, who had kind of had the Kings number all year. And I literally told some friends, like, I wish there was, and I think I heard Deuce say the same thing on a clip he posted today, that we wish there was a day or two in between these games to kind of just relish in that win, because it was a really just impressive effort by the Kings, who played well on both ends of the floor, like more so the defensive end. And then you go to last night, and there's a bunch of things that go into come into play here. The fact that the Kings they haven't been a good back-to-back team this year. They've won a couple more games, after starting going 4. Then you play a shorthanded team, which all the jokes. I mean, when the injury report came out for yesterday's game, I think you probably saw it too. Countless people just saying, "Well, congratulations to the Heat." I kind of was like rolling my eyes at that. I kind of didn't want to really believe that. And I don't know if you subscribe to that notion that the Kings just have a problem with shorthanded teams. Do you subscribe to that notion? Because Mike Brown last night post game said no, he does not think that's a thing.
I mean, there's something there. I just don't exactly know what it is. And like the quote that stood out to me post game was, and I'm paraphrasing, Keegan saying pretty much that like effort can't be it can't come and go in the way that it really has. And I think there were times they looked gassed. Domas specifically looked gassed throughout the course of that game. He had just been dealing with a sickness. But I mean, there's definitely something there. I did think, though, with it being post All-Star break, we're talking like 26 or something games remaining, extremely close Western Conference. You see the Kings, I think, were at 8th before that game against the Clippers. They win the game. They climb to 5. It's like, okay, you got a good opportunity here to keep it rolling with how close these standings are. I thought they were going to pull it out. But, I mean, credit to Miami, I will say. Miami's weird. Like, you knew they played well, even without all of their players. Jaime Jaquez hit ridiculous isolation shots. Like
Your
ridiculous.
high school pal.
Yeah, sure. Went to high school together. Would have made the team if, other circumstances worked out. But no big deal.
Man. Not with Jaime Jaquez, but I've been there with what you're talking about.
But coach said that they were fine not doubling him. And if you go back and look at some of the shots, a lot of it is like, okay, I think we're going to live with that. It was probably more so Bam that I think was really you got to clean that up. I mean, is it just me, or was it kind of tough watching Bam just take one step and get right past Domas every time?
It happened a lot. And also creating space on the mid-range, which I'm not used to seeing Bam Adebayo, which I know he can, but just take that many mid-range jumpers. And he knocked down a couple really tough looks, which I don't know if that's credit to Sabonis or credit to the Kings defense, who put a lot of pressure on the Heat in crunch time. And they just knocked down some crazy shots. Like Bam and Jaquez just kind of back-to-back took turns knocking down tough shots. But yeah, I mean, Bam, I know Sabonis had another triple-double, and I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit later, but the defensive issues are still there with him as far as that quickness, because he's getting beat off a dribble by guys like that, and that can't happen. So
yeah, and the double team has to get there a little sooner. And they all the Kings after last night's game are just going to point to the defense, say that we had to be better defensively. I think that turnovers definitely didn't help them getting Miami easy points. And again, the Bam doubles and some of the rotations after to shooters. But I mean, I thought the offense was pretty tough too for most of that game. You really look at that third quarter, that was just a total mess for the Kings. And Miami's zone defense that they just sat in practically the entire game gave the Kings fits. And it's the second time in a row, both times now that these teams have matched up, where the Kings just cannot shoot and are turning the ball over and just look totally out of sorts because of this weird Miami zone. And the other one that got pointed out post game is like Utah does this a little bit. And the Kings had a little bit of issues with Utah previously, but it's weird to me because Miami feels so unique.
They are. I mean, and I think there's a lot of things that popped up on Twitter too, like beware of the Miami Heat role players. And that's why I kind of was like looking at the starting 5 last night, and I thought, okay, are they missing Jimmy Butler? Yeah. Terry Rozier, Tyler Hero, Josh Richardson, who's had a successful NBA career, I think, as a reserve, and who really torched the Kings. I think he had 6 made threes when they played in South Beach a couple weeks ago. But they had guys last night in the starting 5 that can beat you. I mean, even DeLon Wright, who made his Heat debut last night, knocked down some big shots. Like he made some big plays. That was his debut. He tweeted right after the game, always wanted to wear that Heat jersey. He kind of was I think he was getting DNP CDs. But I mean, Duncan Robinson with a career high, 11 assists last night? Like, they took away his shooting and he was moving the ball. Like, they had guys that could hurt you. Even Caleb Martin had some moments. He had that big dunk to end the game, kind of a slap in the face on the way out. But
Kevin
They
Love just posting up.
Kevin Love. I mean, again, they had 6. I mean, Haywood Highsmith too last night, which Chris Watkins was making jokes before the game, like Haywood Highsmith, just going to be a career night for him, or it's going to be a master class for Haywood Highsmith. Wasn't wrong. I mean, Kevin Love and Haywood Highsmith alone outscored the Kings bench. I'm sorry, Kevin Love alone outscored the Kings bench, 19 points
Wild.
to I think 15. 19 for Kevin Love last night, and then you got 15 or 17 from the Kings bench because Malik Monk had 8 and 7 assists. It's just one of those games from the Kings where one quarter really did them in. And if you take away that third quarter, which again, the game of basketball at the NBA level was 4 quarters. We can't do this hypothetical game all the time. And the third quarter just really was what killed them. And the first and fourth were great. The fourth quarter, especially when you shoot, what they shoot in the fourth quarter, they held the Heat to 38% from the field. The Heat didn't make 1 3 in the fourth. Kings shoot 54% from the field. They go 5 of 12 from 3. You should win that game. And the fact that they were in the position where they couldn't because of how poorly they played in the third, that's all you need to know, I guess. But it's hard to put your finger on it. Like, is it because of the fact that they don't take shorthanded teams as serious? Because that's all I was looking at on a couple of people that covered the NBA last night were saying, watching the Kings, it looks like that they try to they're a C team, but they act like they're an A team the way they play these teams that are beneath them. They act like they can just coast to a win, and they can't. Like when they aren't playing to their best their ability or the best effort, they're not going to win games. And it just was last night was another example of a game that could loom large as we get later in the season.
Well, and it's weird because pregame, like Mike Brown gets asked about how do you keep your guys, how do you make sure that energy level is here for this type of game, considering what's happened earlier this year and some of these matchups, teams shorthanded or the quote unquote worst team coming into town. And he was pretty blunt and like, we talked to the guys before this that every game matters so much for seeding right now. So it's not like this isn't being discussed amongst themselves, and it's just another one of those because like you said, we didn't really get to like breathe after the Clippers game and soak that in. But you put the two games together, it's like, with the recent play in that Clippers game being right there as well, I don't know. I kind of think the fact that they play the good teams at a high level is almost more encouraging to me than them playing down to their opponent's level, if that makes sense, for when postseason time comes around. But obviously right now it's like, well, you better be in the postseason. Like a play-in is a disaster. I mean, what we're going to talk about for the rest of the year is just staying in the top 6, right?
Yeah, and it's a complete mess right now. Like the standings are going to be just like a musical chairs, not just for the Kings, but for the other teams around them. Like right now, as things stand, what's today? Tuesday. The Kings right now are 7th, but they're tied with the Mavericks, who they hold the head-to-head advantage there, and they play them 2 more times in Sacramento, so that's great advantage there. Then you have New Orleans and the Suns a half game ahead of them. I mean, that's 4 teams going for 2 spots. 2 of those teams are going to be in the play-in, and I think when you look at the schedule ahead, which we don't have to get into right now, but the Kings have a tough road ahead of them, and especially this week. Like, what are things going to look like come Friday after the Kings face Denver and Minnesota? Like, you need to get at least one of those games, I would imagine, to keep pace. And Phoenix right now has the number 1 hardest strength of schedule in the whole entire league. They definitely have things stacked against them. Again, we have not really seen Phoenix play at their peak, and that's kind of like but that's kind of the way that these Kevin Durant super teams have gone over the past couple of years. Like, they always kind of like, when are we going to see them really take off? When are we going to see them really go? And I'm not saying that they can't, but a lot of people are being critical about them because of that reason, that Bradley Beal hasn't been healthy. They haven't really been able to string together just a successful stretch, but the Kings can't really bank on that. Like at this time last year, the Kings were pretty much in the same spot. On this day today, a year ago, they were 35 and 25. Today, 33 and 24. The difference is 35 and 25 last year, 10 games over, they had a 4-game lead as a 3 seed over the 4. They're a 7 right now, and they're in danger of falling to 8 with the Lakers and Warriors just 3 games behind. So this is a very different West. It's like the same exact Kings team, but the West is just that much better, and it's very dangerous right now.
Do you feel any better about the defense? Like that was obviously the talking point in the offseason. They're up to 20th in defensive rating. Again, you have these games like against the Clippers or against Denver earlier this year. They've done well against OKC. And there's encouraging moments, but there's also still those same like, gosh, these guys are just letting them walk to the basket or getting wide open threes. But do you feel better about it at all this year?
I don't know. It's hard to say. Like they're 19th in defensive rating, I think, right now, which that's definitely better than 25th last year. But I think that their 3-point defense has regressed. I mean, right now I'm looking at it. They're last in the NBA in 3-point defense. Opponents are shooting 39.6% from three, which is why I'm saying, like, if you're watching the Kings and it feels like opponents are just getting red hot from three, they usually are. Like they're usually
They
knocking down
are.
40% or better. And in comparison last year, they were again 24th, letting opponents shoot 37. So have they gotten better on the defensive end? I think overall, yes. But I think the 3-point defense is going to be a problem going forward because, I mean, in this current version of the NBA, teams are shooting threes. Like they're letting it fly. Like more times than not, these teams are going to let it go. And if you're not able to defend that portion of the game, it's going to be very, very tough to win games because the Kings don't really have, I mean, outside of Keegan Murray and De'Aaron Fox has been playing just the best defense of his career right now. I mean,
Yeah.
is it, that's probably not,
The Clippers game was crazy. Like
it's insane.
and it was a mad De'Aaron Fox after that tech, and he looked different. But I agree. I think this has probably been some of the best defense. We've seen flashes before, but we're seeing it more often.
And that's rare, by the way, seeing Fox show that much fire, which I think is
Yeah,
good to see
I
him.
agree.
Because I think with De'Aaron, like a lot of the time, he not that he doesn't care. De'Aaron Fox wants to win. He cares. I think he kind of just lets himself. He's a little guarded and kind of lets himself not get too high or too low with any game. It's not often that we see him want it bad like that. Like you could tell he wanted to beat the Clippers, and there are some things that kind of go on. We've seen De'Aaron and Russell Westbrook. They've talked a little bit. Like there was that whole thing a season or two ago where Westbrook was like, "I'm fast." Like he was like, "I'm fast." Like saying he was the fastest player in the league. Westbrook and Kevin Herter got into it a little bit a year ago, and I think at the beginning of this year with the too small gesture.
That's right.
There's
Yeah, and
there's
De'Aaron
a
said
little,
he's looked up to Russ a lot growing up.
yeah, which I thought was weird because again, I think it was the season before last. It was Westbrook and Fox kind of like having some not like fighting words, but Westbrook was like, "If you think you're fast, like I'm fast," like because it was after the players poll came out and they voted De'Aaron the fastest player in the league, and Westbrook was second at the time. Um, De'Aaron wanted to get that one, especially against the Clippers team that had their number. I think that De'Aaron's going to be really important to them going down this final stretch. And I think I put it up last night, and I'll have to pull it up again. But what he's doing right now, after playing poorly, with a lot of fans being worried about him, they're worried about that shoulder, which is that going to be a long-standing issue? I don't know. But over the past 5 games, he's had 25 points, 5+ rebounds, 5+ assists, and 2+ steals in all those games. Over the past 20 seasons, only 4 other players have done that. And it's LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, Tracy McGrady, and Jokic. So what we're seeing from Fox right now,
Jeez.
he's back, but you need more from the other guys too. And that's why I'm wondering, like, is it a matter of the defense to you? Like, is if Fox and Sabonis are doing what they're doing, like last night, Fox did the 25-5, whatever, 2 steals, Sabonis triple-double, Keegan Murray had a huge game. It's the defense, isn't it? Like that's got to be what the catalyst going forward is. It's going to be how good can the Kings defense be on any given night. Is that going to you to be what determines their whether they win or lose games?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I still think there's offensive questions. Real quick on De'Aaron. So you go back last 9 games, right? He's played great the 3 games post All-Star break and the 2 games right before. Right prior to that, he had 4 straight games of less than 20, and this is where everybody's concerned. But then you have a Phoenix game he drops 40, and a Denver game he drops 30, and that's right before All-Star break. And then he goes into the break, has 3 great games since 28, 33, 27. Actually, not great against that Miami 7 turnovers season high for De'Aaron. But I think I feel like we almost got confirmation that he needed the break. He looks rejuvenated. He looks rested, whether that's just mentally, who knows, like child at home, whether it's the shoulder, whether it's ankle stuff, whatever it be. I think that he's looked really good. And they need him on both ends of the floor. Like he sets the tone defensively. They were so complimentary of what he did to James Harden in that Clippers game and setting the tone at the point of attack defensively. So I think he and Keegan are really like the 2 key factors there defensively. But I do still have I don't feel comfortable just saying like the offense is going to be there every single night necessarily in the way that it feels like maybe some of Mike Brown and others do. I think more often than not, but you're going to get Fox, you're going to get Domas. I feel fine relying on those guys, but I need like 1.5 of Keegan, HB,
Malik.
Kevin, and Malik. Like, give me like 30 points between them at least, 40 actually, really. Like, I feel like the nights where only one of those guys really makes noise is tough out there. And Kevin had a good stretch for a little bit in that Miami game, but it really was Keegan that was out there with De'Aaron and Domas. And I just think that some of these other guys do have inconsistencies that I worry about. And like after De'Aaron and Domas, who do you feel best about relying on night to night?
I mean, to me, it's Malik,
I
who
think so too.
as like a volume shooter or scorer, he's their next guy. I mean, Keegan, I think from a points per game average, sure, like he's their guy that's done more. But with Malik, I'm looking at just these last 8 games. He was on an absolute roll going into the break, and then it's really going into the break. I mean, those 4 games before that Denver game, he had scored 20 points in 4 straight games for the first time in his Kings career. I think the second time in his career, playing the best basketball probably of his career. And then you look at the last 4 games, 11.8 points per game on 38% shooting, 16% from 3. I don't know if it's impressing a little bit or if he's not just getting his looks, if it's a give and take as far as Keegan was the guy that was knocking down shots last night, even though I thought that his looks were just really within the flow and kind of like mostly late in the third or in the fourth when he was getting those 3 triples. It's not like he's getting the ball in ISO situations and going off the dribble. He's getting that off of, cross court passes, dribble handoffs from Sabonis. Malik's the guy who has the ball in his hands and is initiating the offense. And when he's not able to knock down those shots, it changes the Kings' identity. When Malik Monk is at that his best, though, and like last year, like we saw, there wasn't as many inconsistencies last year. Like you were talking about, like Kevin was rough in the middle of the year last year. I think that was kind of like the downside. Keegan was pretty consistent last year. Sabonis was consistent. Fox, like Mike Brown said, didn't get hurt and didn't really have like a really bad stretch. This year, we've kind of seen each player take a turn outside of Sabonis, I guess that is. Each player's taken a turn at kind of going through a rough patch. And we haven't really seen them all just kind of firing on all cylinders like we did, except against the Clippers. Like Malik even had a decent night that night. He went 12 points, 5 assists, 2 of 6 from 3. It's not good, not great, but 12 points off the bench, you can live with that. The Kings need to be 7 players deep, I think. Like you need to have 7 guys that can go out there and do something for you. And that includes Trey Lyles. And I think right now we're looking at a Kings team who I still don't think we really know who their true identity is. We knew what it was last year, but we don't know what team we're going to get every given night. Like we just don't know who's going to show up or who's not going to show up. And that's the case for other teams in the mix. But for a Kings team that we've seen play really the same group together for over a year now, this is kind of uncharacteristic in my mind for them. But we're at the point though, where maybe it is like, this is maybe the identity of the 23-24 group. This isn't 22-23 anymore. And they need to find some consistency. Otherwise it's just going to be a tough road to the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, last year it was like, to your point, their starting lineup played so much more than any other group. You knew that's what they were going to close with. And then maybe there was a little variance. Maybe Malik would play for either Kevin or HB, right? This year, like you could even look at last night with the Heat. Harrison Barnes isn't closing the game. Instead, they go to Trey Lyles for a little while. Or, there's moments we've seen Chris Duarte out there at the end of games, just trying to figure something out. I agree with you. It should be Malik. There's still a little too much inconsistency for me. And sometimes that's just him not getting as involved. And I think sometimes that could be a little bit of a flaw of like the free flowing offense that Sacramento has. I think sometimes they could be a little bit more direct and forced just for a couple possessions, but 16 games this year, Malik Monk, single digits. Take a crack at the Kings record.
In those games, I'm going to go 5-11.
6-10.
And it feels that way, though. It feels that way. And also, I think last year when Malik go, again, this is not like a huge, but 89% from the free throw line last year, he's 81%. It's an 8% difference in 3. I don't know what that's about either. That's a whole team issue. But when Malik Monk's at his best, the Kings are usually at their best as well. That's how I usually view it.
Yeah, that's absolutely been the case. And I mean, there's still these defensive question marks for sure. Moving forward with the strength of schedule is a really hot topic right now for the Kings. And I know they got Denver, Minnesota next up, right? There's still tough matchups in here. They still got Milwaukee later in the year, just kind of going down. Still got Philly. Got a tough Eastern Conference road trip, by the way. I want to say there's a
At the end of the
broadcast the
year.
other day talking about how it's really rare for them to still have two road trips like this. Like they still have at the end, middle towards end of March, Toronto, Washington, Orlando. Not too bad, but a road trip. And then, yeah, in the last 6 games or 7, the first 4 of those at New York, at Boston, at Brooklyn, at OKC. Like there is a tough stretch in here, but part of me is almost I view it as an opportunity rather than a downside because again, I think we've seen the Kings play up to their level of competition the same way that they've played down. And I feel like they have a chance every single night. And I know you could say that for probably 10 teams in the Western Conference, but that's really what it feels like where we're at. So like when you look at the strength of schedule remaining, is it worrying to you or kind of just the nature of it? How do you kind of approach that?
I mean, I'm looking at the teams that they play, and I think that to me, and I look at the road trip, and I don't really look at the road trips again. Like the Kings have performed well on road trips. Like they go on that they went 5-2 on that 7 game trip earlier this year. Just incredible. I'm looking at like these two upcoming games is like maybe the roughest like quote unquote trip of remaining. Like you have Denver and you have Minnesota, which are like two of the toughest places to play in the league. And the Kings have obviously won in both those buildings this year, which is a very good positive. Um, but I'm looking the strength of schedule to me, it's a little warped because the Kings, again, as inconsistent as they've been, most of these games are at home. Like they have more, I think they have some either the most or like top 3 remaining home games in the league. I'm not sure if that's confirmed, but someone mentioned last night to me that they have like their top 3, top 4 most home games left in the NBA. Last night obviously is not a very good indicator of like, hopefully or what they can do, but um they are at home. They're what are they at home this year? They're last night
They
definitely probably hurts a little bit.
16 and 10, 17 and
16 and
14 on
10
the
at
road.
16 and 10 at home. I mean, obviously they'll get up for these big games, but um I feel like that kind of helps them a little bit. And the teams that are around them also have to go through tougher schedules, like the Lakers, who are technically in the mix. They are the 7th hardest remaining schedule. Kings are 8th. Kings play them next week. You have Phoenix at 1. Uh, the Clippers, who I don't know if the Kings have enough in the tank to catch them, but they're right with them. Same with New Orleans at 10. Um, it's right there. I mean, the Kings are going to be playing the teams around them in the standings, specifically Dallas. They have that kind of home and home week, not a back to back, but they play them twice in 1 week at home. There's no shortage of big games coming up, and it is kind of an exciting slash frustrating, you know, scary time of the year because as each game passes, like the stakes get higher. And I think last night was kind of a game that you really would have liked to had just kind of give yourself a little bit of a cushion. Not really much of a cushion, but you'd have had a half game lead for the 5 seed. Now you're looking at falling to 8. So strength of schedule, I know it's kind of like a polarizing thing. Like a lot of people on Twitter were kind of like saying, "Oh, it doesn't matter." I mean, yeah, I guess if it's on paper, like the Kings' schedule after these upcoming 2 games, what they have Chicago, they have San Antonio, and the Lakers. Like those are 3 matchups. I think that should be on paper the Kings match up well against all 3 of those teams. But I think that we all would have said the Kings match up well against Detroit. The Kings would have matched up well against Portland. They have to go out there and just
Charlotte.
be the Charlotte. Like they got to go out there. They would have the 22-point lead in Phoenix, the 4-point lead in Milwaukee with 15 seconds left. There's no shortage of games. We're looking at like 7 now. That if the Kings, finish 2 games out of a top 6 spot, we're going to look back and say there's no shortage of games you can point at. But I think with the schedule and the strength of it and everything, the point is it's right there. And I think Mike and the guys said it a lot earlier or even last year. They control their own destiny. Technically, they do. Like, go out and win, beat the teams you should, and beat the teams around you. You're going to be where you want to be. But like we talked about a few minutes ago, I just want to know who this Kings team, who are the 2023-24 Kings? Like, is this their actual identity? Just a roller coaster of a team that is going to beat the best of the best and then lose to teams that are completely depleted, because I feel like they're better than that personally. I'm not sure how you feel, but
Yeah.
they have too many good players to keep, continuing this cycle.
What do you think? What are you really watching for in these final games to try to figure out a little bit more of what this team is? Like, I know all these question marks are still going to exist, but is there anything in your mind that could happen that would like help provide some clarity or feel better about, or that you're really monitoring in this final 20 so games?
I mean, I think what we're seeing from Fox is a very good sign. Like, even the fact that, like last night he had 11 in the fourth, I think that he's De'Aaron Fox again. And that was a huge reason why they won 3 in a row, a couple days ago. And when he's at that level, and I think again, like Sabonis is kind of sleepwalking into what he's doing right now, uh, that makes it easier for other guys to kind of like, chip in. Like again, Kevin Huerter's been a good 3-point shooter as of late. I think he's shooting like 45% over the past couple, maybe even a month now. It's been a while.
Yeah, he's
He's been
playing really well.
shooting really well. Harrison Barnes, I mean, he's kind of back into that 4th, 5th option, just kind of plugging holes when you need to, knocking down a 3 every once in a while, trying to play some solid defense. He got the crown in Los Angeles. Didn't he get the crown in LA the other night?
I think Harrison, yeah, yeah,
He did, which I thought it
he
would have
did.
been De'Aaron, but
Kawhi, yeah, I thought it would have
I
been
guess
year too, but yeah,
I thought it would have been De'Aaron. But I guess I'm kind of just looking to see if Fox and Sabonis are going to be those two. Like we just talked about, if Malik's not going to be that third option, like which it should be, what can you get from Keegan Murray? What can you get from Barnes, Herter, Lyles, like the other guys in your top 6, top 7? Davion Mitchell, even. Got to tip my cap to Davion Mitchell, who has been playing probably his best basketball of the year, like so far, after kind of being an afterthought. I mean, I don't know if these are guys that are going to make a difference, but
it's a low bar. I'm not gonna lie.
it's a low bar. But these are the guys that you have. Like again, this is what happens when you don't make any moves. There's no DeLon Wrights that are going to walk through the door. No Royce O'Neals, who had a great game for the Suns the other night. Again, this is the team that the Kings have. I'm sorry, I don't mean to dwell on it, but I'm just saying.
No,
Royce
it was
O'Neal
a crazy game, actually. Some of these stats of like, what is Royce O'Neal doing right now?
He'll be like 20, like 20 and 5 and like 6 or something like that. I
Like
don't know.
6 made threes. Yeah, he actually passes the ball well. It's like, wow, this guy would be nice, huh?
Probably would have helped. But what about you? What are you looking at as kind of like I don't want to say a catalyst or like a indicator of the Kings getting closer where they want to go, but is it a matter of just who can step up around Fox, or is it the defense, or do you think it's just kind of consistency as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, I think this team is going to go as far as De'Aaron takes them in the end. Like, I think you know what you get from Domas, and I don't think there's that much variance on a great night compared to a bad night for Domas, which has its pros and cons, because you look at the other end and it's like, sure, De'Aaron has more fluctuation between the two, but his highs are way higher. And I think that he's going to take them as far as they can go on both ends of the floor, really. Like defensively coming out and setting the tone, you can see when he has that on-ball pressure that infects the rest of the guys. And he's the one starting it again at the point of attack, initiating offensively. I think sometimes he needs to be a little bit more selfish, to be honest. And I think that he could just be willing, or seems to be kind of just willing to let some other guys try to get a rhythm. And I get that, because he seems like somebody that could just turn it on at any point, right? So I talked about a lot last year. It's like he probably sets other guys up early because he needs them later. He could just turn it on. Not everybody can do that. But I think sometimes just go take over a game. And I'd like to see that a little bit more consistently as this year continues. You don't want to see him get more beat up and then be dealing with that going into the postseason, like we were talking about with All-Star break. So definitely De'Aaron. And it just has to be the overall defense, really the 3-point defense. Like Mike had been talking about before that Clippers game, that if they were just around average in 3-point defense, they would have ranked 8th at the time in defense. And it's part of it is that they have a smaller team and just not good defensive guys. Coach, it's almost like he's like dropping little hints here and there every once in a while, but he's constantly complimenting other teams that are big, that have good size and athleticism.
He did it before the deadline too. Remember, he did it before the
Yeah.
deadline, and we were kind of like,
I was
"Oh,
like, I
that's
think
gotta
this guy's
be."
asking for help. Like,
I mean,
but go ahead.
it's gonna be an off-season conversation more so, but like, do you look back at a deadline already and you're kind of just like, man, like they really probably should have addressed a couple of these holes? Because have they been playing like again? The Kings are 9 games over. Like the sky is by no means falling, but other teams made these around the edges moves. And do you think the Kings could at least try to address it? Because again, nothing's gotten better. They're allowing teams to shoot 40% from three.
I don't mind it. I think that, like Royce O'Neal conversation, I think Phoenix is on a way shorter timeline. They have like 2 years. It's like we have to make our move right now. From
KD's
Phoenix's
36 years old, I think,
perspective.
right?
Right. Kings have everybody locked up. And I feel like we've been saying this for like 2 years, and there's only so long that you can say that, right? You can only keep pushing the can down the road. But I feel okay about it. Like, I don't think that we're talking about a team that's in the Western Conference Finals. You know what I mean? And if that were the case, and I felt decent about their odds of that, then I would want them to go make a move, because that means you're close, and those little fringe moves are going to make the difference. I don't know how much of a difference it would have made. It probably would help some games. Don't get me wrong, but I don't know. I don't look back at it with a bunch of regret. Like, Dallas is playing great, right? Since they got their guys, they're playing amazing with Daniel Gafford and PJ Washington. They gave up a lot. It could hurt really much down the line with I think it's like top 2 protected pick 2 years after Luka's deal expires. It's a tough one, but like, I don't know. I'm not sure. Like, a guy would help. Don't get me wrong. Chris Duarte's been good recently, but something more consistent in that sort of mold. Matisse Thybulle, Torrey Craig. I don't know if Torrey Craig fits into that, but Royce O'Neal, those sort of guys. But I don't know. Does it change that much? I'm not really sure.
Probably not. That's just mostly because, again, like, that's just been the biggest conversation around this team. It's like, okay, well, they've stood pat since the last major trade they made was.
I mean, what are we counting major? Like
not Tristan Thompson, DeLon Wright, I guess. But what was the last trade that they made?
Does Rashawn for a pick count? Or maybe trading a pick and Rashawn? There's
maybe acquisition. What is the last acquisition?
I mean, there's Kessler last year. Chris Duarte. It would be Chris Duarte.
Probably Chris Duarte. Yeah, it's Chris Duarte. But before
and then you
that,
have to go back to like DeLon Wright, Tristan Thompson, or something.
Yeah, I got Monty's transaction log up here. Just let me pull up the last trade. You had a 4-team trade, the Bagley Lyles trade.
Okay, that's right.
Traded Jaden Hardy, which he obviously hasn't been as impactful. Actually, 8 points per game on 37% from three. He's been a guy, an NBA player. Kessler Edwards, last deadline. Rashawn for cash. Yeah, that's it. There's nothing else. Philip Petrusev, never forget that deal.
Oh yeah.
The Philip Petrusev deal 2023.
Robin Lopez.
Chris, I'll never forget how excited Chris was. Chris Watkins, our good buddy, obsessed with getting a Lopez twin. Almost got it, but
teased.
But no.
But I don't mind it right now, but you can only say that for so long.
You're right, and that's more offseason talk. But again, I guess a better question would be, like, without getting too dramatic, is this kind of like, to you, the last stand, or whatever you want to call it, for this group? Like, if they hypothetically were to finish the year 8th, and let's say they win the play-in, they finish as the 8th seed, losing the first round to probably Minnesota, is that kind of like, okay, that's end of the line for this group? Or is it kind of like, okay, let's see if we can maybe what people wanted them to do at the deadline last year? Like, or do you kind of just get there and see how it unfolds and how you get there? But I'm just kind of wondering if, do you look at this as kind of like this is the last stretch for this group to kind of show us what the true potential is before we enter the offseason and say, okay, it's time to make some changes?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably where I'm going to be. But like, say you win in the first round, say that you're a 5-6 matchup and you take care of Dallas, I don't know, some hypothetical, right? Then I don't know, could you go into next year and really talk yourself into like, man, Keegan had that 130 ball in the playoffs. Like, he's going to have a big year next year. Can De'Aaron continue to get better? Like, can he get more consistent? And it's like, I think the line that I'd set would be next deadline, because I understand the patience of McNair in this front office. And I mean, it's honestly pretty admirable. Like, think of how long Buddy Hield and Marvin Bagley were on this team, and everybody knew they were going to get traded, and it took forever. They were extremely patient with those deals. and they got good deals out of it. You know, Trey Lyles is just honestly straight up a better player than Marvin Bagley. Was Dante in that deal as well?
Yeah, they got Dante in that deal, which again, I'm looking back
I'm
at
not
that.
over it.
Probably would have been nice to kind of keep him and he would be in that Davion Mitchell role, which would be insane. But I guess that is kind of a good way to look at it as far as like, well, I think the most important thing, I guess, would be the Kings need to make the playoffs so that their pick can
Have to.
convey to Atlanta. Because if they missed the, or they actually, no, if you make the play in as a 9-10 and you lose, or you make the play in and you lose, you're technically a lottery team, right? Like you fall out of the top 8, like you're a lottery team.
The standings are locked in before the play-in. So like last year, I think Miami technically had the last lottery pick, even though they made the finals.
Really?
I
Okay.
believe so.
So,
But I would guess, to be honest, that even if the pick was top 14, say it is 14, I think there's a world where Sacramento still goes to Atlanta and is like, just take the pick.
they should. But is
I
that
think so.
legal? Are you able to do that
Yeah,
with the league?
yeah,
Say
I'm
just taking it. Okay, cool.
yeah.
They should. They'd be smart to, because that way that you free up making that big swing for the fence type move people were kind of hoping they might do. Not the Zach LaVine deal, but like a Zach LaVine, like a star level type player that you want to go get. You can have your picks available, because if the wheels were to hypothetically fall off and the Kings were worst case scenario, they go on a 10-game losing streak tailspin and they fall to 10 or below, like, yeah, that would be kind of a nightmare if you have to go into another year and worry about that pick to Atlanta and you're kind of hamstrung a little bit. But I do not see that. I don't see that happening at all. So I guess my next question to you is, where do you view this Kings team right now? Do you view them as a top 6 team, or do you kind of view them as a, it's going to be tough, fringe playing, fringe 6, like you could go either way? Or do you think that they're a team that, like, you have confidence they're going to get to the top 6?
I would bet on the top 6, but not feel great about it. Probably like 60-40. I think that I actually like their chances in a lot of these playoff matches. Like you look at the other teams that say, if we're talking about a potential 5-6 matchup, like Phoenix is the one I don't really want. I know they've lost to New Orleans 4 times. I wouldn't be horrified going into it personally. Dallas, I wouldn't feel that bad. So, I mean, I think getting that 5-6 is going to be really, really important. Also, because say that OKC and Minnesota are the ones staying with that 1 seed, I'd kind of rather play them in the second round than the Clippers or the Thunder.
For sure. For sure.
So, or Clippers or Nuggets, I mean, but I feel like okay about top 6. It's just that this West is so close, man.
You're
At the
I think
end
you're
of
a coin
every
flip.
day, I think I'm close to it. It's
I'm a
just so
coin flip,
wild that
dude.
at the end of every day you look and it's like they've moved like 3 spots.
I don't think there's any way to really, like, if you're sitting here saying, "Oh, the Kings are 100, they're going to be in the top 6." I don't know. I envy your confidence.
Yeah.
I'm looking at, it's really anybody. And I hate to say it. I really hate to say it. Golden State, man, they're coming. They have an easy schedule coming up. They play Washington tonight at home. Steph and Clay's been playing well off the bench. Like they have a different thing they're trying out. It's working. The Kings don't play them anymore, which I think is fine. I mean, the Kings and Warriors have just ridiculous games for whatever reason. Lakers, I don't have that much faith. I really don't have much faith in them. I am happy to be wrong, but I just don't have much faith in them. I don't think the moves they made really made them.
They have 2 All-Stars and the Kings have none. So
that's true. Two All-Stars, none. But I don't know, man. I'm looking at that. Like we said, Pelicans, Kings, Mavericks, Suns. It's just gonna be tough. But right now,
who would you least like to play in that group?
In a play-in or a playoff series?
That's a good question. I didn't even think about play-in. I was thinking playoffs.
The team I would least want the Kings to play, definitely right now, is New Orleans. Only because of the fact that the Kings really haven't. I think it was the in-season tournament game. It was a good game till the end of the third, and it was a pretty good game. They've just gotten just completely destroyed by them in 3.5 of the 4 games they've played. They've gotten just destroyed. So again, maybe that could change in the playoffs. Anything can go. The Kings have been there before. A lot of these guys haven't been on this New Orleans team, but I think the team I'd most want to play in a playoff series right now which again, not really a great answer because Luka and Kyrie could absolutely hurt you in a playoff series. But I feel like the Kings just match up very well against Dallas, and I think that whoever they have in the post, like as far as the big matchup, as bad as that big matchup was against Golden State, I think that Sabonis is going to be a problem for Dallas to stop because he's really had a field day against them a lot. And they play them 2 more times, so we'll have a better read on them in a couple weeks here. But I'm looking at Basketball References playoff probability, and I said coin flip. Basketball Reference doesn't see it as a coin flip. They say the Kings have a 75.9% chance of finishing the top 6. So I'm
okay. Sure.
I'm not sure about that. They have the Warriors.
I've always loved Basketball Reference.
It's always a little more optimistic than other. What's the other one? Is it
538 or something? Yeah,
I can look up what that has. That's a little more kind of like not
analytics.
optimistic.
Probably not Domas friendly numbers.
Probably not Domas friendly numbers. No. So let me see NBA predictions. 538. If this is even this year, this is last year. Where is this year? Are they not doing this year yet? Maybe not. Or maybe it is. Hold on.
But I mean, I think it is going to be tough here, and top 6 is just going to matter so much in a play-in. Like you asked, in a play-in scenario, for example, any team can win. Like as boring of an answer that is, like these are all going to be so close. We're talking one game. What happens if the Kings can't shoot one night? Like that happens. What if this could be a what if in any game, but what if half a quarter they just don't play any defense like we see? A play-in terrifies me, and that is like the most coin flip thing ever to me.
Also, I completely agree. And also, this is not 538, but this is playoffstatus.com. Take this for what you will. This has the Kings at an 85% chance of making the first round. It has the Suns at a 67%. It's Phoenix's strength of schedule. It's the fact that Phoenix has a tough road ahead. And I guess I should look at it one more time and see who Phoenix has coming up. I think, like you pointed out a second ago or earlier, they play the following teams twice. Let's read it again. Phoenix plays Boston twice, OKC twice, Minnesota 2 more times, Denver, Cleveland, Clippers, all 2 more times. It's a lot of tough games.
Bro, and they still have a Cleveland game in there. They have a Philly game in there. They have a Denver game in there, a Milwaukee game.
That's like they have 24 games left, and over half.
Gosh,
that's over half the games they have left are against just absolute buzzsaw teams. The Kings, they're easier teams that they play. The Kings get the Nets, they get the Raptors, the Grizzlies at home, Portland, Spurs, and Wizards on the road. Last night, again, everything helps right now. Like everything helps, and I think we're looking forward to the schedule too. As far as they play the Spurs next week. Like there's a game I'm looking at right now. I'm circling that. I'm circling that game right now for myself. They got to win that game. You have to win the quote unquote gimmies at this point when we're about to be under 20 games left. Like you can't keep punting on these games. So, it's volatile, man. I think we're going to come back and record hopefully once a week, and then we're on a roundtable on Wednesdays, but I wonder what the standings are going to look like 24 hours from now, because I think a lot of teams on the Kings play tonight too. Dallas and Cleveland play tonight. The Warriors are a little behind, but they play Pelicans and Knicks tonight. That's a big game. So just very volatile right now as far as standings go.
I think we should close with a prediction on this Denver-Minnesota 2 games.
Yes.
It's not a back-to-back, is it? It is.
Thank goodness.
No, it's not. February
that would
days
be
got me
that'd
messed up.
That'd be ridiculous, man. The Kings do have a lot of back-to-backs coming up, though, I think, right? Like, they play, 7, I think, still, or 6?
7, they play LA and San Antonio. There's a Milwaukee-LA back-to-back, Toronto-Washington. There's New York-Boston on the road. New Orleans-Phoenix is 2 of the last 3 home games.
Dude, that New York-Boston back-to-back with a week left in the season? What are we doing? What are we doing, NBA?
But you know what's about to happen, Frank?
What's that?
The Kings are going to beat the Nuggets.
Okay.
Well,
talk to me.
I think it's really hard to beat a team
4 times.
This would be 4 times. Yeah.
This would be the first time.
I know the Kings have
2002, 2003. That was the last time the Kings beat Denver 4 times in 1 year.
Who even would have been on that Denver team?
I could probably pull it up right now.
Like, that's probably...
Let's go down memory lane real quick. I would guess like Marcus Camby.
Kenyon Martin or something.
Andre Miller, Kenyon Martin. Let me go to their franchise index real quick.
That's pretty funny.
Maybe like early Nene, maybe.
Ooh, that's a good one.
All right, I got it right here. That roster, Birdman, his
nice, probably pre-tattoos.
Second year Birdman, Marcus Camby, Nene was a rookie, Juwan Howard, James Posey, and that's pretty much it. Mark Blount, that's pretty much it. And that team, by the way, was horrible. The Kings beat that team because they went 17-65. So
fair enough. I was honestly feeling pretty good about going to this. I was just gonna be like, the Kings are gonna win both these games. Beating Denver, like they could.
They match up well.
Probably not gonna bet on anybody beating anybody 4 times, to be honest.
No, but I will say that I feel better about Denver than Minnesota. The Kings match up well against Denver. The Kings are kind of like a B tier Denver. Like they kind of have similar models. Like they're structured kind of similarly. I feel like you got your Jokic,
but
Sabonis.
They scare the crap out of me, dude. Like they play them well, but they seem like a team they shouldn't. Like how free flowing, how quick decisions their offense is, and the Kings being slow on defense. Like you think Denver should just pick them apart. I would still be. They're still one of the scariest matchups to me in the postseason, to be honest.
Denver?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want any part of them, but I'd rather face them than Minnesota just because of the length and all that comes with it. But there's not really a right answer. There's not really a right answer like, I would rather like Minnesota, OKC, who the Kings have played well too. Like all these teams have their strengths that the Kings will definitely struggle with. But Denver, 39-19. They have a 15th ranked offense. They are 28th in pace. They don't run. I don't know, man. The Kings match up well against them for whatever reason. Maybe Denver comes out and says, okay, we've had enough of this. We're going to swat the nagging bug away that's beat them 3 times. But I think a split. I think a split's the best case. I mean, right? Like that's just the easy answer. A split is the best case scenario.
I think the same. You lose both. I mean, there are reasons for forgiveness with how good these teams are, but you better win one. Like, I mean, that's where we're at. That's where we're at for the rest of the year. Mike Brown looks at it in 5-game segments, win at least 3. Like, you better do at least that the rest of this year.
You're 9 games over. If you want to keep pace with these teams around you, you have to split. Like, you got to keep playing. You got to keep pace with these teams around you. And then you come home and you get Chicago, who's going through a lot. You got to win these games. Lakers on the road, you want to put them down before they start kind of coming up and making things more uncomfortable. You don't want the Warriors and Lakers to kind of start getting in your rear view. And then, like I said, San Antonio, I already had that game circled. Then you go back into a kind of a rough home. There's a homestand coming up, which again, for everyone that's going to be planning on being at the arena, you have a lot of opportunities to come out to the arena.
March is packed.
We're going to be living there. That's why this last little 2-game road trip is kind of a chance for us to recharge and get ready. But that homestand in March is going to be really big too. Chicago, you go on the road for 1 game, play the Lakers. Then you're back again for San Antonio, Houston, Milwaukee, LA, New York, Memphis. Big homestand. Big homestand against some tough teams. In the back-to-backs too with the NBA, what the hell is this about? Milwaukee and LA, and that one late in the year, New York, Boston. I just don't understand that.
Yeah, they're tough.
Why?
They're tough.
That is such. I did not know that New York Boston back to back takes place at the most inopportune time. Like that is going to be. I'm already looking at that and saying like that's going to be a problem. If the standings are how they are right now, where 4 teams are separated by a half game, my God, man, that could be just devastating. So.
And then the Kings will have some horrible game in New York and then come out and beat the Celtics in Boston.
Boston, when I watch the Kings play Boston, it's like watching two different leagues.
It's true, actually. I forget how bad they get smacked every year. It's been like 3 years in a row at least.
I think the differential is like 23.5 points, like on average the
Oof.
past 2 seasons. They completely destroy them. And I don't know. I mean, Boston's probably gonna have the division or the conference clinched like next week. The way things are going, they have like an 8-game lead between themselves and the 2
It's
seeds. So
ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Jason Tatum
maybe
for MVP, by the way.
you're really gonna
I'm just
you're
saying
shipping
the
that, huh?
easily the best team in the league, and he's easily the best player on the team.
Do you think it's a matter of people not giving him respect?
I agree. This is going to go great on a Kings podcast. I agree with what
All
Draymond
right.
said about it the other day.
What was
That
that?
we're at the point with Tatum because he's made it so far in the postseason so many times that he's not going to get that MVP respect until he wins a chip. And
Very close to. He
I
almost
don't
did.
think that's really necessarily fair. Like he was pointing out, like that wasn't the case with Giannis, wasn't the case with Jokic, wasn't the case with Joel. And I don't know. I just think it shouldn't be a runaway. Jokic's numbers are ridiculous. SGA, Luka, these guys are putting up ridiculous numbers, but I don't know. I feel like a lot of years it'd be a different conversation of like clearly this best guy on the best team.
I'm a big Tatum guy. I like him at Duke. I think voters really maybe they feel like they messed up not giving Jokic a third straight a year
I
or
can see
two
that.
ago. Is Jokic the most deserving player of the MVP this year? I don't know. Maybe. I mean, I think there's definitely a discussion. I mean, again, like I'm looking at what Luka doesn't have the record, but like individual play, like I forget this guy is like literally he's like LeBron. He's LeBron James. Like the numbers he puts up are like LeBron-esque, and he's like what 25 years old. So him, Luka, Jokic, Luka, Tatum, Giannis is in the mix. I think again right now. I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is a player that people are looking at as who could finish top 2 in MVP voting because of what he's done and the defense he's played too. I think that all those guys are probably the All NBA first team, though. I think that Tatum is going to be All NBA first team at the very least. But
Yeah.
Sabonis, maybe a couple MVP votes.
Maybe. I was just peeking at the numbers. 20 points.
Before we go, we got to highlight that just real quick. Just real quick.
Oh yeah, it's ridiculous.
We talked so much about Fox and everybody else, but Domantas Sabonis, 40, count them, 40 straight double-doubles. He is the 11th player, I think, in NBA history to ever do that. Let me read.
And he took the current crown last night.
What is that?
Over Kevin Love.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Speaking of Kevin Love, players that have posted 40 straight double-doubles. Wilt Chamberlain, Hall of Famer. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Hall of Famer. Elvin Hayes, Hall of Fame. Bill Russell, Walt Bellamy, Moses Malone, Elgin Baylor, Jerry Lucas, Hall of Fame. Bob Pettit, all Hall of Famers. Kevin Love, interesting case. Maybe. I think if Chris Webber made the Hall of Fame, Kevin Love has an argument. Domantas Sabonis. This man is insane. 3 straight triple-doubles. He's the only player in the NBA to have multiple 3-game streaks of triple-doubles. He's done it 3 times.
Damn. Yeah.
So I don't know. I was talking on the air with Jason Dave about why he gets disrespect. I said it's probably a Sacramento thing. I think if you put Domantas Sabonis on the New York Knicks, he'd be probably a top 3 MVP candidate right now. Top 4, top 5. If he's playing for New York or playing for Milwaukee or I don't know, a team that's been there, been respected. I think the Kings are still a little brother in the eyes of voters, in the eyes of national writers or voters, the eyes of fans from around the league who I don't know if you've seen on Twitter, but people are like, I don't know why, but it's just not impressive when everything he does is unimpressive to me.
Yeah.
I don't
he's
know.
Boring for people. Like he's not flashy in any way, except some of these like nice little, drop off passes and DHOs, which like are kind of a nerdy more so thing rather than like a typical flashy fun play.
He Euro'd Wembanyama and like that's the clip. He Euro'd Vic and people are like, I don't know why. It would have been so much more impressive if someone else did it. What do you mean?
He also just postered Zubac.
Yes, and people are like, look what Zubac is doing to Sabonis. Sabonis, 20 points per game, 13.2 rebounds, 8.5 assists, 62 field goal percentage, 42 from 3, even though it's low volume. I tweeted a couple of days ago. We're going to look back on this someday, and it's going to be like, first of all, how wasn't he an all-star? And second of all, what the hell happened? This man is doing insane things that only Wilt Chamberlain and Jokic have done. So I'm giving him some flowers. People probably should give him some more love. And I think for a lot of people, they aren't going to give him that respect until he does it in the playoffs, because people still look back at what happened against Golden State. So, Domantas Sabonis, man, that's all I got to say.
Which, yeah, we don't need to have the Golden State Sabonis conversation.
I mean,
but it always agitates me because the Kings easily could have won that series. Like, everybody talks about it like they got smacked. This was a 7-game series where Curry had to take like 40 shots to get 50 points in game 7. Like, they were very much in that series against maybe the best defender of this generation. Like,
Harrison Barnes made 3 away. Not all his fault. Harrison Barnes made 3 away.
I saw like a still picture of that the other day, the shot, and I had never seen it.
Was it the hypothetical tweet where it was like,
yes,
it was like how far the Kings have gone if this shot goes in? It's like maybe conference finals, but they shot 30% from 3 that whole series. A team that was a top 5 3-point shooting team, best offense in the league's history at the time, not anymore. Enough with the Sabonis stuff. Like, you didn't just say you didn't watch the series. Then, if people are still pointing to that, just say you didn't watch the series. You're looking at the numbers. Like, the numbers are not indicative of what happened. Kevin Huerter, Harrison Barnes. Sorry to name names, but anyone that was not named De'Aaron Fox and Keegan Murray, who played well in the last 3 games, did not play well. That's the end of the story. So, but I digress.
I agree.
Let's not keep. I'm gonna get mad too.
No, I know. It gets me. Yeah, for sure. It's a very common take, for sure.
Easy to hate.
Am feeling okay going into this final stretch. I still feel like there's a lot of things to learn and figure out, but not only about the Kings, about like most of these teams that we're talking about in the Western Conference. The top 4 are in their own grouping, and then there's these next 4, and then really you want to throw 2 more in there with LA and Golden State that you never want to count out as we get closer to postseason. It's just crowded, and it's hard for anyone to differentiate themselves. My God, man, I have Domas's box score pulled up here, and I forgot about this 26 rebound game in Memphis. 26.
It's stupid.
Holy.
If we're still covering the Kings like 8-9 years from now, 10 years from now, we're gonna be like looking up on StatHead or whatever when I don't know, some son of a current NBA player is coming up and we're covering him in 10 years. Who was the last King to have a 20, 25, 10 game? Oh, it's Sabonis. It's just stupid.
And now it's Terrence Davis the 4th.
Terrence Davis the 4th when he's playing for the Kings. To your point though, like you said, the Kings, like, I feel good too, because when you look at where the Kings are they going to be playing meaningful basketball, postseason basketball, meaning play-in and playoffs? Yeah. I mean, there's like a 99.9% chance that they're going to be playing in the play-in or the playoffs. They have a 7-game lead over the Jazz for the 11th spot. So, like, barring a ridiculous, just an awful collapse, they're going to be playing at least a single elimination, game. Whether you like that or not, they're going to be playing a game that's going to make us all sweat at some point. So, this is where the fun begins now. Now you got to take care of these games and put yourself in a better position so that you're not playing a single elimination game. So you're playing a 7-game series. So Denver and Minnesota, we'll see you soon.
I'm with you. The play-in would be horrifying. Hopefully that's not what we end up talking about, but I'm sure it's going to at least be revolved. The conversation will be revolved around that as the year continues here. And like you said, Denver, Minnesota next up. We're going to keep pumping out content, sactownsports.com, and going on the radio often. What we're on, is it 5 days a week between the two of us?
Yeah. We'll be on tomorrow, Wednesday at 12:30 for the Kings Roundtable with Alan Stiles and Chris Watkins. So please join us every Wednesday at 12:30. Yeah. And then if you're at the arena, come see what's up. We'll be there a lot coming up, and we, you
might got to wait in line to say hi to Frankie, though.
Stop it.
Mr. Popular.
No, it's my family. It's just my family. I got a big family.
You say so.
Yeah.
It's the Italian.
Hey, I know. Got to go watch some Sopranos tonight. Gabagool. Yeah, we'll see you at the arena, everybody.
Yeah, sounds good. So thanks to everybody for tuning in. Again, be sure to check out more of the YouTube video, audio content, Sactownsports.com on YouTube. Also, Sactown Sports 1140 Radio 6 to 6, Monday to Friday. Appreciate everybody tuning in. I'm going to be keeping up with these a little bit more, so you'll hear from us in not too long. Thanks, guys.